for joining us in this space today, whether you're here in this room or joining us through the live stream. As ASUSF Senate, our main priority is to ensure that we address feedback on how to improve our university by making sure that everyone's voice is being heard and taken into account when we're pursuing our initiatives to better serve you all. And this is why we have all worked extremely hard to create this space for us to come together. We'll be having two portions to this town hall. We'll have like 30-ish minutes for us as a team to give updates on resolutions and initiatives that were passed last year. And we will also be talking about resolutions and initiatives that we're all working on this year. We will then transition into a presentation and discussion space with Katrina Gary, Jess Varga, and Lisa Fox from the Title IX office in the Rec Committee. We'll be having a Q&A to provide a space for questions and feedback. Please note that this space is not confidential, as the guest speakers have reporting obligations that cannot be suspended. I'll now turn it over to Elizabeth Bellas, our Vice President of Marketing and Communications, who will be going over community guidelines.
Thank you, Marisol. We introduce everyone's requirements for team rally. For speakers, please remain sensitive and mindful of student experiences and the ability to share only what they feel comfortable with. Please provide clear, succinct, and honest answers to student questions. We reserve the right to ask any follow-up questions where you deem necessary. Now, for ASUSF Senate, President Marisol Council and I, UCAM School Belas, will be monitoring the questions in the audience and online. We will call upon participants to speak up as it is deemed necessary. Now for audience, please be mindful of the different voices that you may hear during town hall, including members from ASUSF Senate and our speaker panelists. We want to ensure that every voice is heard and make sure we have a safe space for everyone. To ensure that we create a safe space here, we want the space to be respectful, honest, and mindful of others' experiences. As we want students to feel comfortable speaking up to ask questions or opportunities from the space. Now we're passing on to review ideas. We'll be going over the resolution presentation.
Thank you, Elizabeth. My name is Idea Patariya, and I'm the Vice President of Advocacy for ASUSF Senate. I would like to thank everyone for your presence tonight. We'll be providing you with the updates on some resolutions that were passed last academic year, along with some resolutions that are in progress this year. First off, we have a Zoom fatigue resolution submitted by Andrew Law. This resolution requests that the Faculty Association calls its members to give 5 minutes break for any class that extends beyond 1 hour and 5 minutes, and that the USF administration to ensure best education academically and mentally. We have received an update that the resolution was presented to our USFFA Faculty Association Policy Board for faculty support, and they voted to support the resolution. Next up, we have updates for the regulation of public safety rounds in residence hall resolution submitted by Rebecca Munoz and Divine Riley. The resolution initially requests that the Department of Public Safety partners with Black Student Union to create and modify policies that the Department of Public Safety, together with the Progressive Policing Community Advisory Board, conduct listening circles that the residential stops about their entrances. With regards to the progress of this resolution, the Department of Public Safety confirms that they will now be only entering dorm halls due to certain requests. They are working with the community living team to limit responses. For instance, the community living team members will handle situations involving alcohol and marijuana. In response to creating listening circles, Department of Public Safety invited a total of 13 BIPOC current USF students and alumni to participate in listening circles on Sunday, October 17th. And then the disarmament and reform of the public safety officers resolution is also working towards similar goals towards remaining, having disarmed officers there in the residence halls and having them remain disarmed, and holding listening circles, and for additional seats have been added to the Progressive Policing Committee Advisory Board. These listening circles are also to ensure the complete understanding of the significance of disarming the public safety officers. It also allows the police chiefs and campus abolitionists throughout the semester. And then the Department of Public Safety will also be making recommendations to Board of Trustees around this issue of the disarmament and potential changes to their uniform. Now, I would like to pass it on to Marisol once again to speak about the next resolution.
Hi again. So the next or the resolution I'll be talking about, the increased transparency of student nominations to the Board of Trustees, was authored by my predecessor, John ASUSF. This resolution requests that when it's time for the ASUSF president to nominate student representatives for the Board of Trustees committees, necessary materials such as eligibility requirements, schedules, and any other additional information that would help potential nominees determine their commitment should be submitted and sent to the ASUSF Senate by May. If the nominee is denied by the Board of Trustees, they must provide a valid explanation for their denial, and it must be communicated with ASUSF Senate. When the nomination process begins, thorough conversation between Senate and the Board of Trustees must happen in order to have an efficient process. These requests were implemented, all of them were implemented in the process this year and will be reevaluated when the next nomination process occurs. Okay, the next resolution calls for the the resolution Sexual Misconduct Prevention and Education Committee was submitted last year by Myra Cruz, who is our former VP of Internal Affairs, Becca Munoz, who is our former senior class rep, and Lovepreet Dinsa, who is our former junior class rep. This resolution calls for the renaming of the Title IX Task Force. This committee would become active beginning spring 2021, which was last semester. And the bylaws of this committee was written by both Title IX and Senate, along with the Deputy Title IX Coordinator. And as an update, the committee's name was previously named the Sexual Misconduct Prevention and Education Committee, and now it's called REPS, Resources, Education, Prevention, and Support. We currently have a Deputy Title IX Coordinator, Trina, who's here with us tonight, who was hired late spring semester. And the REPS committee has had 8 meetings since June when they began, and they currently have several subcommittees.
Thank you, Marisol. Now I would like to invite Berkeley, our Vice President of Finance, to speak about the upcoming resolutions.
Very much, Adia. As you said, my name is Berkeley, and I'm the Vice President of Finance this year. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the exam fund resolution that was passed by Dallas Williams, our former pre-law representative. So as you all know, as students, a lot of us consider going to grad school, and entry to grad school can be rather expensive. And so Dallas had the idea of trying to get some help with the entrance exams for graduate school. So currently, there's $10,000 from the ASUSF reserves that students can apply for to help with their entry-level exams. The fund is prioritized for 3rd and 4th year students. And in order to be able to receive funds, you just have to pay the activity fee. That's the only requirement. It's currently active, and you can receive up to $250
from the fund. And this fund is managed by myself, Vice President of Finance, with assistance from our advisor, Nick Kang. Currently, you can apply for this fund on the ASUSF funding website in the exam category. Thank you. And then the next resolution I'd like to talk about is the referendum to establish the VBAC representative as an official position. This was submitted by Myra Cruz, the former VP of Internal Affairs, John Seppo, the former president, and myself, the former and current VBAC rep and VPF. So the University Budget Advisory Council is an advisory council comprised of staff, faculty, and administrators, where they make advice along the university's budget. And there are many staff, faculty, and advisory people on the board, but there's only one undergraduate student. And so we wanted to up our representation in that space. And so one of the result statements was to allocate 2 seats to undergraduate students on that advisory council, as well as making them a 2-year-long term, because the first year is really just a learning experience on how the university budgets, because it is completely different than any other finance classes that you may be taught. And then one of the seats can be held by the VPF, which is myself. And then finally, to make me back as an official position, because it previously was just an at-large position. Currently, these are both official positions within the Senate. I am in my 2nd term as VBAC representative, and then we also have NAM, who is in their 1st term on VBAC. That is all, and I think I will be passing it off to Lisa.
Hello everyone, my name is Fiza Sheikh and I am the previous and current Muslim student representative. And so last year I passed a resolution for supporting practicing Muslims during the month of Ramadan. For those of you guys who do not know what Ramadan is, it's basically a 30-day celebration and kind of ritual that we have in our culture that we follow, where we fast every day. And as students, it can get hard because now Ramadan has started to fall between school and finals week. So basically, my resolution talks about how if students need to get an absence, they can receive an absence, and they just have to basically make up their work. And if they need an extension, they can definitely ask for one and be granted that. And they can also be excused from class for at least 15 minutes if it conflicts with prayer times. As Muslims, we have 5 prayers during the day, so if anything, and they want to pray, they can definitely ask for that. And also, we want University of San Francisco to explore like a broader and more encompassing religious exemption policy, so there's more inclusivity for the community and different cultures. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Now I would like to move on into the resolutions that are in progress. Hold on a second. Okay. So I would like to invite Marisol once again to provide us with the details on her upcoming resolution.
Hi, so my proposed resolution is related to the resolution I mentioned earlier regarding student representation on Board of Trustees committees. Right now, students are limited to serve 1 term as a student representative on Board of Trustees committee, so that other students have the opportunity to have the same experience. I hope to expand that a bit and have the term limit to be 2 years in order to increase continuity transitioning into the following year. And it would also be easier for students to report information to the student body because they're more familiar with how the committees operate, and they're more familiar with the discussions that were held the previous year. Students who have served are asked during the nomination process if they would like to continue serving. This opportunity is based on not only their availability to serve the following term, but it's also based on feedback from committee chairs. So the ASUSF president would be in constant communication with committee chairs. A possible, well, there are currently 2 seats for student representatives on each committee. And a possible compromise would be to have 1 rep with eligibility to serve 2 terms. And the other one will have no previous experience. And as of right now, I'm currently in conversation with the Division of Student Life, Father Fitzgerald, and a few Board of Trustees members to possibly implement this. And now I'd like to pass it over to Miles.
Hello, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Miles Goodman. I'm the current student representative on Senate. I came into this role back in February and then ran for re-election, of course, in April. This is my first full term. The resolution I'm working on right now kind of touches on why I came into Senate to begin with. I transferred from federal college in fall 2020, along with a lot of really strenuous conversations over the fact that a lot of my classes were getting counted. Amtrak, which I've abbreviated so conveniently because it is focused on pathways, pretty much calls for a holistic audit of not only the ACO articulation agreements that exist between USF and a bunch of over 60 California community colleges, but also evaluates current transfer criteria and the means of aligning graduation with the University Commission. This resolution will not change the curriculum per se, it will rather change the way that curriculum is interpreted. It will target several core areas, including Area E, to include prior coursework and experience in social work. And for students who want to pursue multidisciplinary education, double majors or minors, it will also encourage that. Other examples include the fact that for students who took classes like culture and anthropology at previous institutions, those do not encounter the culture diversity requirements. That's obviously changed, but it's pretty much everything the same kind of school thought. I'm also trying to outline a new highly transparent academic advising process. Right now, the website advising process relies on faculty to reach out to students, but oftentimes for new students, that does not always happen. And also in my capacity as Senate, I am a non-voting representative on the Board of Trustees Academic Affairs Committee. So with the work I'm doing on this, I'm looking to align its resolution and its initiative with the job project to be done. I'm not sure who I'm passing on to, but that's my job.
I would like to invite Lisa up again to present her resolution.
I'm Lisa again. I just wanted to revisit my resolution from last semester. And basically, I am asking that there would be more support and for any religious type of support that anyone needs, not just Islam or Christianity, but any religious practices that any of our students probably have. I want them to receive that support, especially in the times of final exams. For us Muslim students, I know that now the finals will be falling during, Ramadan will be falling during final season, and it's really hard to take an exam with starving without drinking anything. So I just want to make sure that we receive the support that we need. I also want to do like a formation or creation task so that a group can review and implement support for Muslim students during the month of Ramadan. This is just a very important month for us, and I want to do anything that can really help. And in terms of the cafeteria, I want there to be extended hours for Muslim students because we fast for 24 hours, and when we have a specific time when we can eat, and the cafeteria sometimes closes early or it's not open during that time. It gets really hard for our students to figure out where they're going to eat or how they're going to find something to eat. So, yeah. And then I'm also working on having a prayer room and hopefully having a 24-hour access to a prayer room so that students can perform their prayers whenever they need to. And I also want to encourage, influence, and put together a widespread religious policy for all students and for the faculty to know how to support students. Thank you. I don't know whose name. Sorry. All right. Okay, so this is another resolution I'm working on. So I want to ensure halal food in the cafeteria. As Muslims, we do have specific requirements when it comes to meat. and we can't eat pork. So basically, like our food can't really be cooked in the same food that is not halal, which is basically we have a special way of our meat being slaughtered. Um, so basically, I'm requesting like a special workspace for halal food. Because for me personally and other students, I know it gets really hard to find something to eat on campus. So honestly, I really find myself eating the same thing every day, which can be really hard. And students and I myself have seen pork as halal on the menus of the cafeteria, and pork is always haram in our culture. So I want to make sure that changes. And also, we are not really guaranteed whether the food is halal just by putting a simple halal sign. And just seeing halal next to pork has really made me more cautious about what I eat on campus. So I'm kind of request that there would be a Zabia halal meat certificate that should be displayed so our students are ensured that what they're eating is actually halal. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiza. Now I would like to invite Angela, our sophomore class representative, to present his progress.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm Angela Rosario, the sophomore class rep. So the resolution I wanted to work on was encompassing mental health. So again, being only a second year student, I didn't really get to experience life on campus and like having had school online like for the whole year last year. I didn't really get to connect with other students in my classes and things like that. So this is where this resolution kind of started. And again, I didn't want to just have it for the underclassmen, but kind of for anyone who wishes to work with me in addition to just like working with the just mental health in general, just for the sophomore class. So again, you can see here, international students and Title IX related things are also something I want to consider with my resolution. And then with some initiatives, I wanted to try to create some safe spaces or meditation hours to try to make sure that people are okay during this first semester back on campus. Finally, the ASUSF Senate Expo is kind of the brainchild of all this. So it's kind of a semester-long series where I want to kind of tackle different topics to ensure that all students are kind of included and taken care of mentally. Yeah, again, if you're interested in helping me out with the Senate Expo, feel free to scan the QR code now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Now I just would like to invite everyone to scan this QR code if you're interested in going to this event. So if you take some time to pull up your phone and feel free to scan and attend the event, you know, because it would be a really helpful space for all of us. And Angela puts a lot of effort in it. So please scan it and register for the event. Now. Thank you. And now I would like to invite Akmal, our newly elected freshman representative, up to present about her upcoming resolution. Hi, everyone. My name is Akmal Sabu, and I am the newly elected freshman class rep. A resolution I'm currently working on is the Title IX Canvas module. So the idea is that USF students demand a required course and or training for all community members, which would include students, faculty, staff, coaches, etc. And this would be at least quarterly or even once a semester. And for initiatives, it would be creating a required Canvas module for all students per semester to be educated on Title IX and yeah. Thank you so much, Akmal. Thank you so much to all those who presented. Next on our agenda, we have our panelists, the Title IX office and CAPS. I would like to thank them again for their time and attendance. Please welcome Katrina Gary, our Deputy of Title IX Coordinator.
Yeah, we're all presenting together. So
Okay.
should we set up here or what's best? In terms of, I think you're up first.
Okay. folks. Good evening, everyone. In terms of slides, how do we? Perfect. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know this is a Wednesday slump. But awesome to see services with it. Justin, I'm here. Great. Thank you. Good evening. So. There we go. Oh, maybe I can do that. I actually went like that. Anyway, good evening. I'm Jess Varga, I'm the Title IX coordinator. I use she, her pronouns. I started here at USF in January of 2019. And so I had a little bit of on-campus time, then went to pandemic time, and now I'm happy to be back on campus with everybody. So my role is to coordinate the steps that are taken to respond to incidents of gender and sex-based discrimination, which includes sexual harassment, dating and domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking. That happens with any member within our community. So that's students as well as employees. And so that includes coordinating resources and supportive measures for individuals to continue being successful at USF in spite of maybe experiencing some unfortunate and unwelcome behavior. It also includes working with prevention and education related to educating our community about sexual assault, sexual harassment, and just general gender and sex discrimination. It includes working with our policy and making sure that we are an agent of that policy for anyone who wishes to utilize a resolution process or have further support if a situation occurs. And then working with our community and other offices to continue changing our culture and spreading the message that we do not tolerate sexual violence on our campus. There's been a lot of work happening since after the summer of 2020. And part of that is bringing on board these two wonderful people next to me, our Deputy Title IX Coordinator, Trina Gary, and a sexual violence resource advocate who's also a clinician in CAPS to serve as a confidential resource. So we went through a search and hired these wonderful people. We have some temporary private space up in Lone Mountain right now. Previously, we were in UC5 where there's a little bit of an open office environment. So now we have a space that's private and is a little bit more conducive to the conversations that we tend to have with individuals who are seeking out services from our office. We have had some really great, and thanks to Trina, building bridges with our athletics department. This was one of the tasks specifically for the deputy position. And that has included reviewing and making changes to the student athlete's handbook that is specific to the sexual misconduct portion. As mentioned before, there was a revitalization of what was formerly known as our Title IX Task Force, which focused primarily on prevention, education, events, and programming, to what is now REPS, and Trina will go more into that. It is great to see number of staff and students very involved with that, and looking forward to just the work that they're going to be continually putting out throughout the year. There has been, in the midst of the pandemic, in the midst of the external investigation that we had, there was some changes in the federal regulations related to Title IX, which did require us to do a policy update to come into compliance with some of those elements. We anticipate that by 2023, with the new Biden administration, there's going to be another update. So by the end of this academic year, we'll probably have what those the proposed regulations will be. So we'll be working with students, staff, and faculty, our general counsel, again,
to provide an update to our policy, as well as making sure it's compliant, but also that it fits the needs of our USF community and the culture that we're trying to build here. I think those are the main updates that we've got going on. So oh no, we got this. Yeah. Recently, oh, we never slide. So recently, there was a communication from Father Paul as a secondary follow-up to the Sports Illustrated article that was written now a few weeks ago. And with that came some wonderful activism and passion behind making sure that this campus and us and the administration are continuing this conversation and continuing to build a safe community for everyone here. And this resulted in some, I'll use their words, demands. And so we did provide some responses to those demands that were included as a link to that email communication Father Fitzgerald sent out. They are posted on our Title IX website under community updates, and encourage anyone who is looking for information about what's currently going on, and then also what our hope is in relation to those demands and how we want to also see those come to fruition in a way that is effective and very intentional and genuine. What was also referenced in that email communication from Father Paul was that we do have a document that came back from a working group that was put together, including faculty, staff, and students, that really dive deep into the 57-page external investigation report and looked at ways that they thought that we could be actually putting some tangible items into practice out of that report. And so that document is also linked and it's available on our website. It's called the Rebuilding Trust and Community Working Group. And it's a recommendation document that Trina, myself, our Vice President for Student Life, Julie Oreo, our Director of Athletics, Joan McDermott, Shannon Gary, our Dean of Students, have been going through, and we will be continuing to look at those recommendations to, again, just keep moving us forward, keep us accountable to improvements and making this just a better and safer community. I'm now going to pass off to Trina.
Awesome, thanks, Jess. Hi, folks. I know that we're like kind of doing the microphone, kind of not doing the microphone. Are you hearing me through the speaker? Okay, cool. So I'm Trina. As President Castro introduced us, which is wonderful. I joined USF Community this past April of 2021. I can't even remember what year we're in at this point. It feels like it's been a pandemic forever. I'm super excited to be joining or join the USF community and kind of jump into really focusing on sexual violence prevention and education on this campus. Previously, the Title IX office consisted of just Jess. So now we have two people up in Lone Mountain working on behalf of the students, again, to continue to work towards this, this campus culture, this campus climate where sexual violence doesn't occur. And that really fuels kind of our life's work here. So I'm really excited to, introduce in a more formal way at the town hall our new REPS initiative. So REPS stands for Resources, Education, Prevention, and Support. You may have heard our name or seen our logo around. We're definitely trying to incorporate ourselves in more kind of everyday life of student experience. The REPS initiative came out of this formerly known Sexual Violence Prevention and Education Committee. It was also the Title IX Task Force. Because first of all, it's a mouthful, it's a very long title, but also, we were noticing that students heard Title IX and felt like it was a barrier, right? Like they were not feeling, either feeling like it felt really high stakes or feeling like it was not a entity that they even could like recognize or go to. And so by kind of rebranding our prevention and education, efforts, we really found this as a way, or hopefully continue to be a way to build kind of accessible, transparent partnerships with students on campus. And we've been doing a lot of work this far, which I'm going to highlight. Cool. So the main goals of REPS are really to connect students to resources available on and off campus,
To keep swiveling. Including but not limited to CAPS, public safety, and Title IX. To create programming, trainings, and workshops for both undergraduate and graduate communities, as well as faculty and staff. To support the Sexual Violence Prevention and Education Committee, which is now the REPS Committee, to create campaigns, events, and kind of impact policies on campus. And also to foster just a community of mutual respect and accountability, and to create a culture of care, one where sexual violence is unacceptable, right? And we know these are like the goals that are also mirrored by kind of the campus community. Okay, cool. And tied to this work is our 5 main goals that we kind of established with the committee this summer. So these goals are based in resources. This is a big goal, right? Students know and understand the different sexual misconduct resources and also feel comfortable using them. This is a big goal in building trust, and also, making sure that not only folks who are typically seen as survivors of sexual violence are accessing these resources, but marginalized communities, right? And this is really important for us. Second is education. So students are educated annually on sexual violence prevention and also grow their cumulative knowledge and mastery of bystander intervention during the time at USF. We saw this mirrored in the demands, right? And I'm excited to work with the first year class rep hearing about the Canvas module. That's really exciting and one of our goals as well. Collaboration, so there's regular collaboration on sexual violence prevention and education efforts with the Sexual Violence Resource Advocate, our cultural centers, and other kind of campus offices and departments in order to foster inclusive as well as intersectional programming and events, right? We know sexual violence occurs on many different ways on the axes of power and privilege, and it's really important to acknowledge that in our education. Communication, students feel knowledgeable about sexual violence prevention and education efforts on campus. We don't have many followers on Instagram yet, but we're working on it. And I think this is also part of, again, like demystifying what is Title IX, what are the resources on campus. And finally, it's engagement, and ASUSF, right, huge shout out to all of you and the work that you're doing. We want student leaders to be highly trained, not only to recognize and respond to instances of sexual disrespect, like RAs, community assistants, cultural center interns, but they're also just regular opportunities for any USF student to get involved with reps and Title IX and other campus resources, to feel a stake in what's happening. And Pavani, Kayla, and Stevie are here from our reps committee. If you guys want to wave in the audience, they'll introduce themselves at one point, but we are, just a note on the agenda, we are going to be breaking up into small groups for discussion. I hate this kind of conversation, like talking at people, it stinks. So we're going to be doing some small group conversations after Lisa presents, and then we'll kind of come back as a group to debrief our small group conversations and also just have a larger Q&A. And for folks who are tuning in on the live stream, there is a Google form, and we will be reading out the Google form answer as well. Straight up. Okay, so I just also wanted to highlight a few key kind of changes that happened just in my first 6 months here. We're actually in the space where this happened. But our orientation format has switched a lot. So instead of doing a 2-hour, enormous group chunk, we actually switched up orientation format to be 1 hour of kind of presentation, and our second hour is actually in small groups led by our Go team and our RAs. This is one of the key things, and not only the Rebuilding Trust group found, but our reps committee noticed was folks were really disengaged in our education sessions, right? And that was not something that we were looking for. And so in the switch, groups work through small scenarios as a team, and you can see that some of the small groups with sophomore welcome week, which was a really exciting change. We will be assessing in a formal survey to all the first years this orientation session and creating kind of programmatic changes over the next few months. We also worked with all 14 sports teams. We did 15 different sports workshops to separate women's cross country and women's track and field. These workshops all happened within the first 4 weeks of school. They were all 90 minutes each. It was a lot of time for me to talk, but it was also
We found these workshops to be very, very engaging. Students also are going to be assessed on, these workshops, and we also will be making changes for next year. And finally, we rolled out a request a workshop form. This is on our Title IX website under workshops and trainings. We've also circulated this in our emails to the community. Any student on this campus, for their friend group, for their suite, any staff or faculty, for their office, department, for their club or organization, or whatever it might be, dance group, you can request a workshop, and we have a variety of different workshops available. And what will happen when this form is completed is it'll go right to my inbox. I'll reach out to someone who's completed the form, and we'll set up a time to talk about what sort of training, what sort of workshop would be useful. I have 2 minutes. I'm going to go really quick. October is also Relationship Violence Awareness Month. I did want to highlight we are featuring a special workshop on building healthy relationships, building healthy teammate relationships, peer relationships, roommate relationships, you name it. We are focusing on both, platonic relationships as well as thinking about romantic or sexual. And this has been offered to the entire Greek Council, to all student athletes, to clubs and organizations. We will be hosting one with the University Ministry coming up in November. And we're just excited to kind of, get out there. And then also, last but not least, tomorrow we will be doing tabling with some local Bay Area organizations focused on domestic violence prevention and response, advocacy, and support. This will be in Gleason Plaza from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And we also be at the Student Leadership Conference, so register. Okay, handing it over to Lisa. You do.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Thank you for coming out today. It's like, dinner time. Y'all are probably tired, but you showed up anyways. I think I caught like some of like the speeches that were given earlier, like with like bills, I don't know exactly what you call it, bills that are passed or like resolutions that are passed. And it reminded me of when I was in undergrad and how a lot of things that we wanted to see change came from students. And I was like super, by the way, shout out to you, like Fiza, right? Fiza, I was like super, like, I was like, yes, this, like pushing that resolution, because I remember starving in my like exam and I couldn't even like get out of my exam like that when I was in undergrad. So a lot of the important work I know came from students because I was a student myself. And one of the programs that I like as a student started in my undergrad, by the way, I'm from Canada. I don't know if you noticed that I'm from Canada. I went to the University of Ottawa, and we didn't have like things like this where we can openly talk about like what is sexual violence, especially within my own community. I was heavily involved in my community, very diverse, so specifically the Muslim Student Association. And it was such a taboo to even like announce during Jummah prayer that we were like, hey, I'm running a workshop. We're just gonna talk about these things that are happening in our community. So I feel like just like an open opportunity to even talk about it is so like, I think it's so incredible. And Angelo, right? I remember meeting you last time when we had the thing, the in-person events, and we're pushed for mental health. I feel like it really motivates me to do the work that I do. And I think like me and Trina, if we were like, and Jeff, like we wouldn't be here if like people like you didn't like push for more providers on campus, specifically like specialists. Like I feel like for there's like two folds that I see in the work that we do. There's the prevention piece, because sexual violence is preventable. It is, I feel like it's been such a norm that we expect it in society, but it is preventable. And also addressing what like the harm that's already done. What does reconciliation look like for us as a community? How do we have this conversation? How do we sit with it? The discomfort of it, the healing, there's healing in the discomfort. So I feel like that's why I'm showing up today, and that's why you're showing up today. I feel like some of you, like, because I'm recognizing some faces that, like, you know me, and those who don't know me, I'm the sexual violence resource advocate. I'm also the staff psychotherapist at CAPS.
So on top of the work that I'm doing, working with students who have been impacted by sexual violence, who are needing just like psychological treatments around that, I'm also meeting with other students who are also struggling with other mental health support. I mean, like I'm just coming out of the Asian American Pacific Islander group at CAPS right now. That's something that, you know, because we heard from students that is needed, we created that space. And I feel like, and that's, we're also in conversations of how would a group look like for survivors on this campus. So I don't want to take too much of our time because I want to go into the breakout group, but I also want to give a shout out to, this is real trouble, like, I want your attention. So I want to give a shout out to Trey, who runs the Yoga is Healing group, and she is in her 7th week. There's 2 weeks left, but you can still drop in. 2 minutes left. You have to register online. You can just Google Yoga is Healing. I'm sure it's like up there somewhere. I know it's not, but you will find it. I can provide it for you. And I believe that it is a really important group because what trauma is not only like what we're saying we're feeling, it's also a somatic thing. It's a physiological reaction to a thing that was not okay that happened. And I feel like just this generation understands that when we talk about safe space, it is so privileged, you know? Like, I feel like the old concept of safety is coming out of a framework as if, you know, I mean, if I could be totally transparent, like just being in a predominantly white institution and being in white spaces and structural, like this past 2 years, we've seen so much that's happened with the racial, you know, reckoning that, you know, safety, we think we could just like, you know, provide safety. But I feel like it's also a collective act that we all try to cultivate. So that's all. I know that I'm out of time and I want to do the breakout group, but thank you so much and we're wrapping up. Thank you so much for listening. We're gonna break out into group right now.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, if you do want to set up an appointment or know someone who wants to set up an appointment with Lisa as a sexual violence resource advocate, just call CAPS either Monday through Friday 9 to 5 and request Lisa through the intake. Or if it's a crisis moment, you can also call and you know, describe that you're having a crisis around sexual misconduct, sexual assault. You may not speak specifically to Lisa in that case, but you will speak to someone immediately.
Yeah, can I just mention one thing? So I am doing trainings with people like the staff there around like specific sexual violence, like counseling. So that's something that I'm also doing within CAPS. We are like less abuse, like we have positions that are not filled, so we're at capacity, and I feel like, but the trust building piece, I think that that's something that I think is important, and I want to reestablish with the community here.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so if folks are feeling comfortable, we are going to break up into, I think, 6 small groups. We're just going to spread out around the room if possible. So folks on the live stream, this will be more boring. Myra's unfortunately sick, so Myra couldn't join us today, but I'm going to ask like Kayla, Pavani, Stevie, if you guys want to come up and introduce yourselves. These are the most awesome students ever beyond everyone who's here. All of them joined the committee, the REPS committee this past June without knowing who the heck I was or what we were going to do. So I've been so lucky to work with them over the past almost 6 months now, which has been absolutely wild. Time is flying. So we're going to be doing a sort of an exercise in these small groups that will elicit conversation. It's something that, you know, our first few meetings as a REPS committee, we went through as a group, and it's all about thinking about the norms that exist in our social and sexual culture here at USF, and starting to think about what ways can we disrupt these norms and these patterns, especially the norms and patterns that encourage or normalize disrespect or even violence, right? And so this is not something that we're going to be like reporting out specifically like things that people said or wrote, but more just so we can be in conversation with one another. I think maybe we'll just have the students speak. Yeah, I think so. If folks just want to break up, especially if you don't know the other people in the group, that's actually like for the best. Please don't leave. Please stay for this conversation. It's really important.
So do you want, if someone wants to go over there, someone wants to stay in the middle, and someone wants to go to the other side, that'd be awesome. And if folks just want to jump in with a group, that would be great. We're gonna be in small groups for about 30 minutes in conversation and then come back as a group for a Q&A and a debrief. And administrators, staff, please feel free to join small groups as well. All three of us will join group.
Oh, sure.
And y'all can do it. that might just be easier for, like, don't worry, it's all good. Cool, well, thank you so much for trying out a new format with us, and I know it's, it feels like a long time to talk about these things. I'm again thankful to Kayla and Pavani and Stevie for leading our small discussions, and also Lisa and Jess, for being a part of this. So I'm excited to debrief this conversation, but also open this up for Q&A. I don't want to lose either parts of it. I think the biggest thing I want to highlight just from my small group conversation is that doing this activity was a way to bring some of the work that we're doing and thinking about in reps and in the Title IX office to all of you. And I know you're all partners in this work, both folks who are here and folks on the live stream. So I do want to say thank you. And I think part of this is thinking about, like, what is the cultural camouflage, right, that makes sexual misconduct and sexual violence possible. And by looking at these norms and examining them, both norms that encourage positive behaviors as well as norms that, we just accept in our everyday lives, but also encourage, disrespectful or even dangerous behaviors, are part of what we're working to address. So if anyone does feel comfortable sharing out, I'm not going to bring the mic over to you. You can just kind of say something and I'll repeat it. So, whoever needs to hear. But I'm curious how those conversations went and any thoughts you had or outcomes or things folks wanted to share. Yeah, Kayla, awesome.
We said that we noticed that it's very much a ghost town on weekends. USF definitely clears out. But we also noticed that as far as when it comes to the weekends, the social culture, people are very good at the money system. Usually people are good at finding people that they trust and comfortable with staying with them if they really go out and go to a party or something.
Yeah, definitely. So for folks who can hear, Kayla's mentioning that USF clears out on the weekends, becomes a ghost town. People aren't really engaged in campus community, and campus isn't as vibrant as it is during the week. Definitely. So what were some of the things y'all talked about in terms of addressing that?
As far as just having more activities on campus during the weekends, and we brought up how now that we have the new dorms,
Yeah.
There's more students that are centralized on campus, so it's easier for students to come out to those activities because they're not all spread out throughout the city. It's gonna take some time for that to really start, but definitely just having more activities, having more orgs and things on weekends.
Yeah. Yeah, if you create more on-campus options, right? Folks can meet people they maybe normally don't meet through kind of the exclusion of social spaces, right? And who doesn't normally have access to those spaces? Campus is a place most folks do have access to, or everyone does in theory. And thinking about how that also changes the way it shapes our social and sexual climate. So not Kayla, someone else from Kayla's group, what were some ways that you think that would change social and sexual culture if there were more on-campus activities? I don't know who this is. More accountability, people may feel like they're meeting new people, it's maybe a more desexualized environment. Yeah, definitely. Okay. The other two groups, if someone wants to share out, and I'll be Stevie, that might just have to be you. I'll go over here. Yeah.
We have a similar policy kind of about having events on campus. I guess kind of choose the scene on campus. A lot of people say it's kind of
Yeah.
I guess we kind of notice how most parts of campus is there's less rules.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess kind of talk about what it looks like.
Yeah, so similar thoughts about off campus, on campus. What was the second part of our conversation? I was part of this group. So. Anyone else want to talk about it? One of the things we talked about was kind of the normalization around body count, right? And especially in male communities where folks actually tally or count up their number of sexual partners, and how that, you know, explicitly connects to a culture where sexual violence is possible, and thinking about how do we disrupt that language being like ubiquitous. I saw a lot of head nods when I just said that. And so that's something that we also were thinking about, and you know, it felt like awkward to even bring up in this conversation, but obviously like that's a reality that you know, a student shared, like they came into their new dorm and this was something everyone was talking about and told them that was important. Like that's an explicit communication of community values, right? And when body count is your community values, you have a culture that instills sexual violence, right? And so that's why this is the conversation that we're having, is thinking about, you know, what role can we have as administrators to disrupt that, but what ways can we also work as a community to give y'all the tools to make sure that that isn't a, you know, we're not reducing people to numbers, right? Thanks. And Stevie, how about your group? Or Lisa, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I feel like we're talking about one thing, but one thing, you know, I know that it was mentioned, like, you know, during weekends, it's like pretty young. But even like one example that was given in our group, and by the way, you guys can jump in if I'm leaving something out, is they could be in the same like building on the same floor, but if you're not part of the same group, you're not interacting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And does anyone else in the group want to expand on that? Yeah. Yeah, you want to keep going and then I can just repeat it. So
Yeah. So on with that, it's more like, well, if we're looking for, if somebody's, you know, not feeling comfortable in a situation, I'll try to like.
I'll repeat too.
Okay. If somebody's trying to look for, you know, just like if they're going through something that's uncomfortable, who do they reach out to if they don't know people around? It could be a full room, but they might not feel comfortable reaching out to cats, or they might not feel comfortable reaching out to other people. So there is that culture that's there.
Yeah. Lisa's talking about how siloed campus culture is, right? And that folks can live on the same dorm, on the same floor, but if they don't interact in the same activities, there's not that like, you know, general trust or even just connection. And a lot of what people access and what they do is based on their friend groups or communities. Is that a good summary?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you talk about that connecting to a culture in which sexual violence is possible? Or maybe sexual violence isn't possible? How does that connect to a culture in which sexual violence is possible?
Well, I feel like in situations like this, silence is like really, it makes it very difficult for people who are survivors.
Yeah.
To get the help they need.
Definitely.
It also feeds into the idea that, you know, they have to deal with it themselves when it is a societal issue. It is like putting accountability onto the person who perpetrated, like is still, you know, something that is an issue. Like we're not focused on accountability. So that's
like a culture in which there is silence because of lack of connection, lack of trust, lack of, you know, feeling like you have safe resources around you, is a culture in which, like, you know, survivors will struggle, right, and not access resources, and silence is not obviously creating change or creating a supported environment. Awesome. Okay, Lisa, Justin, and I will all come up here and we'll open it up for Q&A moderated by President Castro and Elizabeth. Awesome. Thank you all for hanging in with us. I'm gonna just put our info up.
Okay, so we can now open it up for questions.
We'll try and like alternate like questions from the audience and also whoever's attending the live stream. I'm not really sure what it's looking like right now. So yeah, we can go ahead and start if anyone has any questions. And I also want to acknowledge that I know that the breakout space, like, this is also based on your capacity, so like, please take your time.
So I know that one of the main goals that Mac Reps have is to educate more people on campus, and I know that you all have been hosting workshops and like collaborating with sport teams and et cetera. But I just wanted to know, like, are there any initiatives on like education about sexual
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. So right now, we educate around 2,000 students a year between kind of orientation and our mandatory reporter trainings for our RAs, our community assistants, our cultural center interns, other mandatory reporters, go team during orientation, correct staff, and we also are just taking, as I showed before, like folks who are requesting these trainings. We're trying to like really structurally ingrain with charter student organizations as well as other student orgs and just offer trainings right now. At this point, we don't have any like formal policies around mandated education annually, except for student athletes, which comes from behalf of the NCAA. So the NCAA does mandate that every student athlete is educated every single year. So we actually have to, Jess has to attest to that form as well as the athletic director and the university president. So that's why we do trainings with all the teams every year as required by the NCAA. Mandatory reporters also have to be trained annually, but I'm excited to think about this Canvas module and other ways we can, and we do have an ASUSF Title IX representative who is thinking about like what a resolution would look like for student leaders or student groups on campus to have mandated education. Is that helpful? Cool. I would add one more thing is like I definitely support mandated education, but I also think the sessions in which students request these trainings are probably the most productive ones I have, because students are seeking out this and really like engaged and embedded in it. So I think it's not only just mandating education, but how do we also increase engagement? And I know like even small groups here tonight felt a little awkward in some ways. Like I think I'm also trying to think about how do we make students feel safe and supported in these discussions as well.
your website, you guys have a list of books that you recommend reading or documentaries you recommend watching, like what's the best way for self-study and to help develop those?
Yeah, we currently do not, but that is a fabulous idea, and I think that would be a great way to solicit feedback from how other people have been learning as well. I'm writing that down. Thank you. Maybe something we can share out on our Instagram too. Is, maybe a new check this out kind of new mediums that are out there. There's some really great work that's being done out there that we can replicate and just push out as well. So that we can share that. Thank you.
In order to create a positive environment around
one perspective and like education around safe sex is really important. And I know that Jesuit values don't necessarily align with like providing condoms, but I think that's a really important part. So I'm wondering if you were to speak on that. Is there any like working around that? Like we can provide free access, sell it if they're getting off, anything like that.
That has not been something that's been within the scope of Title IX at the moment, but I think there's some space with, I believe Health Promotions has been the carrier of a lot of that conversation. But I think that's a great idea to maybe collaborate with them about having some of those discussions, because they definitely have been the place where that question's been posed before. I think one way that has potentially been a workaround to that is when they invite non-affiliated organizations onto campus, that there could be opportunities for dissemination that way. So maybe it's increasing those opportunities or those spaces. But I agree with you. I think that there's sort of a disconnect that we're providing the education, but then not providing the tools for how to do that safely. So I think that's a conversation that we should definitely be having with whoever makes that call regarding the connection with our Jesuit and Catholic values and the resources that we're providing. Thank you. Yeah. And your suggestion, maybe like, yeah, some way that I can have it self-selected to utilize those. Great. Thank you.
On the topic of education, if you could speak a little bit more about what your process is for educating on things like bystander intervention. Is it like scenario based? And then as a follow-up, do you think that similar methods of education to educate, I guess, new organizations or people on how, also normalizing products leads to more people with dedicated users?
Yeah, definitely. And great question. So right, we have a couple different, or I have a couple different ways in which we educate. A lot of it is based in discussion and scenarios. Typically with tight-knit communities, like sports teams, we do a lot of exercise and even like role playing of someone says something or does something like in low levels of disrespect, either overseen in a group chat or in a shared communal space, or like even out and about and thinking about like how do you respond in that moment, or what do you follow up, what do you do, and actually practicing that out, right? Because in group protection, like you're talking about, there's some really interesting research articles, particularly in bystander intervention, where groups that have like higher social status on campus actually protect each other more and don't intervene on each other than groups of marginalized communities or folks with less social hierarchy. So and I think we are working on building out a bibliography for research articles on our website. All our workshops are not only trauma informed, but they're also research based. I am looking for students who want to spend time doing research with me and literature reviews and things like that. So if that interests anybody here, I have a sociology student working with me and a public health graduate student, and I'm trying to take on more students. But I'm really interested in this connection. So it's a great question. And I think it's something that thinking about privilege is part of bystander intervention, right? Like who are we protecting at the sake of others? I think privilege is also, really embedded in survivorship and who feels like they can speak out, who has a platform to do so, who's believed, who's not believed, right? These things are kind of critical and foundational to how we're trying to address this work. So I hope that's a helpful answer. Okay, cool. I think we have time for one more question, and then I'm going to hand it over to President Castro for more closing remarks.
Sort of like one-on-one work with the president's cabinet, leadership, administrators. What's the best way for us to address, that?
Yeah, I think especially after this most recent article, we actually think there's been some really great headway into opportunities to have those conversations. Actually, Trina and I have a meeting with Father Fitzgerald in a couple weeks, and he will be attending the reps committee to learn about what is currently being done and also what is needed in order to further this education, these resources, the support. I think any students have the opportunity to either contact individuals directly or through places like committees or through your representation with ASUSF. I think that would be a great way to do that. But I think I feel like there's renewed sense of opportunity in the past couple weeks to be reaching for some of those positions and players at a table that might have some more resources, more ability to make things happen on a faster timeline. So I think, or maybe in the starts of that with actually having a meeting with the president and our provost. Well, our new provost will also be attending a reps committee meeting in January, again, to learn about what's going on and ways to continue collaboration.
Yeah, and I'll just add, there's a at-large ASUSF Senate position open to work with us and to work with reps. That position puts you directly on our reps committee, which is now closed. So if you do want to meet with the president and the provost as part of this committee, maybe not the only perk, you get to work with us. Please consider applying or let your friends who are passionate about these issues consider to apply as well. I know there's a lot of campus conversation, there's a lot of emotion around these things, and I haven't had much uptake from students who want to step into these roles. So if anyone is interested, I'd love to talk to you about it more. I know a lot of folks here already have Senate positions, but for folks who don't, yeah, thanks.
Just one more thing to close, I think maybe to sort of wrap up some general thought is, the Title IX is such a small piece of this puzzle, of this entire picture. Title IX has become this synonymous word and language for sexual violence prevention, education, response on campuses. I think because it got so much media attention in the Obama administration, and it has made a lot of different progress in different areas. But Title IX really is such a small piece. It's this almost like this legal policy piece. We can do so much more. And Title IX, in terms of compliance, is the floor. And I am so grateful that we have people who are passionate and with students who are engaged to bring us to the ceiling and beyond that, right? We shouldn't just be striving to stay at the floor level. And so when we think about things like reps and our advocacy and activism on campus and one of the things that Father Fitz's email that I really appreciated was this idea that we will be more active voice in making comments to government and the changes that might be happening as they affect our campus. And so while we use Title IX to lead all of that, try to think of it more global. Think of it as sexual violence prevention, education, support, and resources. And Title IX is just a way to address that, but it's just one way to address that on the campus.
I'm sweating, I'll tell you that. I don't know if it's actually warm in here. I'm just
I don't know. Great, thank you, Trina, Jess, Lisa, and members of the reps committee for joining us tonight and having this very important dialogue. I genuinely hope that this space allows your voice to be acknowledged and validated, which is always our biggest priority. Although there's a lot of work that needs to be done, I really hope that being in this space together as a community helped all of us take a step towards healing and examining what needs to change in our spaces.
Senate is here to support all of you, and there's nothing that we value more than your voice. So we are beyond appreciative for all of you for trusting us to share this space together. However, this conversation obviously doesn't stop here. Besides the feedback form that was mentioned, we do want to hear from you all, and we want to have a conversation of how we can work together to create a safe space here on our campus. So please come visit us. We're on the 4th floor in the UC. You can DM us on Instagram, you can email us. Just come say hi and let's just have a conversation. If you're looking into getting involved in advocacy work, there are open spots on Senate. We currently are welcoming applications for senior class rep, junior class rep, student of color rep, and as Trina mentioned, the Title IX reps at large representative. For more information, you can visit our website, our Senate website, or you can DM us on Instagram. Again, I appreciate you all for being here tonight, and take care.
Thank you.